The day Clara and I broke up, we hurled the most vicious words we could conjure at each other, wishing one another a future filled with nothing but loneliness. After graduation, our lives split apart, as if by design. She took a job and moved south, while I packed my bags and went north. We had silently sworn never to cross paths again. 7 years passed. I had just returned to my hometown, coaxed by my mother into going on a blind date. It was at that restaurant that I saw him, a little boy who looked so much like a younger version of Clara that it stopped me in my tracks. He walked right up to me and latched onto my leg, just staring up with wide, curious eyes. I crouched down, a smile forming on my face as I asked him, "Hey there, who do you belong to?" Just then, a voice I hadn't heard in years, but would never forget, came from behind me. "He's my son." I froze for a second before slowly turning around. There she was, Clara, standing by the entrance. She wore a simple black coat, and her dark hair fell just so, partially hiding her eyes. She seemed more reserved, more put together than she had been 7 years ago. The woman I was on the blind date with, noticing the sudden tension, asked, "Do you two know each other?" I could only nod. "Yeah, we do," I said, my voice feeling distant. "Her name is Clara. She was my first love. Back in college, she was the girl everyone talked about, the campus beauty. She sat next to me in class. She would quietly follow me on my way home after school, and, on rainy days, she'd give me her umbrella, choosing to run home through the downpour herself. When I nearly got caught for skipping a class to go to a concert, she was the one who handed me a piece of candy at the student council office to calm my nerves. Every time she won a basketball game, her eyes would scan the cheering crowd, looking for me. We shared our first kiss in the woods behind the campus, went to countless concerts together, and once took a spontaneous trip out to the grasslands just to watch the stars. On her 20th birthday, she stood on the balcony of a 56th floor apartment and shouted to the city below, "Clara will always love Leo." How could anyone forget a love as passionate and all-consuming as that? After we broke up, I had played out hundreds of scenarios in my mind of how we might meet again, but not a single one was like this. Standing right in front of me was her son, dressed in a white polo shirt and gray sweatpants. His face was a miniature version of Clara's, especially the way he pressed his lips together in a firm line. Looking at him, I could see a ghost of the young Clara I once knew. I couldn't even remember the specific reason we broke up anymore. I just recalled that on that day, we cursed each other to a life of solitude and then stormed off to our separate rooms. I remember crying behind my closed door for what felt like hours. The next morning, I packed everything I owned and moved back into my dorm. 3 months later, on graduation day, a younger student excitedly asked to take a picture with her. She glanced over at me, and I quickly turned my head, avoiding her gaze. My roommate nudged me, pity in his eyes. "You two are really over, aren't you? It seems like such a waste." He added, "I heard Clara's company is relocating her to the south. You probably won't ever see her again." The words felt like a physical blow, but I stubbornly packed my bags for the north, determined to build a life where our paths would never intersect. Strangely, I was almost grateful for the blind date my mom had set up. She had insisted I dress nicely, so I was wearing a trench coat with my hair neatly styled. At least I didn't look like a mess. After all, in those dramatic movie reunions, one person always looks perfect while the other is caught completely off guard. I wasn't the main character in one of those movies, though. "Long time no see." Her voice was calm, but I noticed her fingers were clenched tightly at her side. I pushed aside the lingering bitterness from our past and managed a smile. "Long time no see." She glanced at my date, a woman with glasses who was smiling politely, and raised a single, questioning eyebrow. "On a blind date?" I nodded. She let out a small, self-deprecating laugh. Well, we won't keep you then. She took the boy's hand to lead him away, but he clung to my leg, refusing to move. It took her a moment to gently pry him off. As he let go, he kept looking back at me with big, pleading eyes. The kid hadn't spoken a single word since he first approached me, but when the server brought my food, he had nudged the bowl closer to me. My date asked awkwardly why he was so quiet. With a stubbornness that was pure Clara, I tried to smooth things over. "This boy looks a lot like you," I said, looking at Clara. She met my gaze directly. "But his eyes are more like his mother's." The words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I quickly looked away. She must be truly happy now, with a family of her own. It seemed I was the one who ended up living out the curse of loneliness we had wished on each other. I fell silent, giving the boy a small nod before returning to my seat. My date, sensing the shift in mood, kindly tried to change the subject, placing more food on my plate. "You haven't eaten much yet." From beside me, I heard Clara's light chuckle. As she was leaving, she called out, "Come on, Sam, let's go. We shouldn't disturb the nice man's date." My hand froze mid-air. I remembered a warm summer night years ago, walking with Clara after a date. We passed a family of 3, and she squeezed my hand, saying, "Leo, if we have a son one day, let's name him Sam." After Clara left, my date started asking more questions about her. I didn't want to talk about it, but she was persistent. Finally, I just said, "She's my ex-girlfriend." My date laughed awkwardly. "Well, she has a child now, huh? No worries, though. Once we get married, we can have our own kids right away. Your mom told me you've been on your own all this time. I feel for you. You should stay here. I'm a teacher with a stable salary. It's enough for both of us." I listened to her go on, took a sip of water, and then made an excuse to leave. Before I could go, she glanced at the bill and said, "How about we split it? Not that I'm stingy, but we aren't officially a couple yet, right?" The young server looked at me with an expression of pure disbelief. I just smiled, took the bill from her, and said, "No need, I'll cover it." A couple $100 wasn't a big deal, and it was a small price to pay to avoid having to add her on a messaging app for future contact. If my mom hadn't tripped on the stairs and hurt her leg, and if my boss hadn't been harassing me to the point where I had to resign, I never would have come back home or agreed to her constant demands for me to go on blind dates. When I got home, my mom was waiting eagerly. "So, how did it go?" she asked. I changed into some comfortable clothes and faced her where she sat on the couch, her leg in a cast. "It's not happening, Mom. Please stop pressuring me." She started grumbling. "Who's pressuring you? You're 27 years old, still single, and living all alone in the capital. Of course, I'm worried about you. That woman is educated. She's a math teacher, and her family has a house and a car. Plenty of people would love to marry her. You're just too picky." She continued her lecture from the other room. "So who is it you actually like?" Clara's face flashed in my mind, and I let out a bitter laugh at myself. "Leo, what are you even thinking? You two broke up years ago. She's married with a kid now. Get over it. I decided it was time for some sleep. Life back in my hometown was much slower paced. The doctor said my mom's leg just needed a month of rest, so I figured I could treat this time as a short vacation. A chance to make up for all the sleep I'd lost over the years." For 2 straight days, I did nothing but eat and sleep. On Monday morning, my mom had finally had enough. She stormed into my room and yanked open the curtains. "You can't just sleep your life away. Your dad said you slept for 20 hours straight on the couch yesterday. He thought you had died," she continued. "It's Monday, and I've already talked to the principal. You're going to be my substitute teacher for the next month. Get up, get changed, and get to school." I wanted to protest, but then my phone rang. It was Aunt Lou, the school principal and an old friend of my mom's. "Leo, you were a top graduate, and your mom is the class teacher. With her on leave for a month, I really can't find anyone else to fill in." Aunt Lou didn't have any children of her own and had always treated me like a nephew, buying me clothes and shoes when I was a kid. Feeling a wave of guilt, I knew I had no choice but to agree. Standing at the front of the classroom, all the little kids stared up at me with wide eyes, their hands covering their mouths in quiet giggles. They were adorable. Then I saw him, sitting in the very front row, the little boy from the restaurant. I glanced down at his notebook and saw the delicate handwriting. Sam. It was a good name. After class started, I noticed that compared to the other kids who would occasionally whisper to each other, Sam was completely silent. I was curious why this child never spoke, so I called on him to answer a simple question. He stood up, looked at me, and said nothing. I was puzzled. When the bell rang for break time, the other kids swarmed around me. "Mr. Leo, you're so handsome!" "Mr. Leo, will I be tall like you when I grow up?" "Mr. Leo, are you going to stay here forever?" I smiled and answered each of their questions. That evening, I asked my mom about Sam. She sighed. "That poor kid has autism. You'll need to be patient and take extra care of him." I nodded. From then on, I made a point to spend extra time with Sam after class, gently guiding him and encouraging him to speak. His condition seemed to improve. He started answering questions in class. His voice was soft, but it was a start. About 2 weeks later, a little boy with a ponytail burst into my office shouting, "Mr. Leo, Sam and John are fighting!" When I got to the classroom, both kids were a mess. John was on the floor with Sam pinning him down, and he had a bruise forming on his face. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly pulled them apart. After getting them cleaned up at the nurse's office, I brought them both to my office. No matter how many times I asked, neither of them would tell me why they were fighting. I had no choice but to call their parents. John's parents were furious and said they were on their way. When I looked up Sam's contact information, the space for his mother's name was blank. I had to call Clara. She sounded like she was in a meeting, but her voice stopped abruptly when I identified myself. Looking at Sam's scratched face, I took a deep breath. "Is this Sam's mother? This is Leo, Sam's substitute teacher. There was a conflict at school today, and if it's possible, I need you to come over." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before she finally said, "Okay." By the time Clara arrived, John's parents were already there. Seeing their son's injuries, they immediately started yelling at Sam. I frowned and stepped between them. "John's mom, I understand that you're upset, but we don't know the full story yet. Issues between children need to be mediated calmly by adults. If you have an issue, you can speak with his father." John's mom looked at me, then seemed to back down a bit. I knelt down and quietly asked John why he and Sam had fought. He avoided my gaze, looking guilty. Frustrated, I turned to Sam and asked him again. He just looked at me, his lips pressed tightly together. Then John mumbled, "He said I don't have a dad." Clara walked in just in time to hear his words, her eyes flashing with displeasure. John's mom quickly smacked him. "How could you say something like that? Apologize right now." She then turned to me. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Leo. My kid was wrong. He deserved to be scolded." John glanced over at Sam. "Sorry, Sam. I shouldn't have said you don't have a dad." After that, everything was easier to handle. John's mom apologized to Clara, who accepted it without complaint. She took her son and left. It was well past dismissal time, and in the quiet office, it was just me, Clara, and Sam. After a brief explanation of the school's policy, she looked at me, not making any move to leave. The old clock on the wall ticked steadily, marking the passing seconds. Finally, I had to say goodbye to Sam and head out. As I was leaving the school, I ran into my blind date from the other day. Seeing me, she quickly caught up, just as Clara followed behind with Sam. The woman, Brenda, excitedly invited me to come see her new house. "My family bought the house outright," she kept saying. "All you need to do is cover the renovation costs, and you'll have a place to live. Isn't that great? If you bring a car from your family, we'll have both a house and a car." I found the whole proposition absurd. The house was fully paid for by her family, having nothing to do with me. Yet I was expected to pay for renovations and provide a car. Out of politeness, since we were technically colleagues at the school, I didn't say anything, but I made a mental note to avoid her from now on. Suddenly, I heard a clear, sarcastic laugh from behind me. Brenda's face turned red. She looked at Clara's stern, unfazed expression and seemed to swallow whatever she was about to say next. She just turned to me and said, "Leo, think it over. I'll be waiting for your answer." Before I could respond, she hurried away. I frowned and headed to the parking lot alone. I knew I needed to make things clear with her next time. I had absolutely no feelings for her. Just as I was about to get into my car, Clara suddenly grabbed my hand. I looked up, surprised. She seemed to realize what she'd done and quickly let go. "Leo, I need to talk to you about Sam. If you have time, can we chat? It's about his condition." I thought it over for a moment and then agreed, driving with her to a nearby cafe. She crossed her long legs, her expression unreadable as she watched Sam playing with some toys in the kids' area. "Sam has autism, Leo. You know that, right?" I nodded. "His father passed away before he was born. The doctor thinks his autism might be related to that. He craves a father's love." I was confused about where this was going, but I just followed along. "Well, maybe you could find him a father figure." Clara let out a soft laugh. "Of course. Isn't that what I'm discussing with you right now?" Seeing my puzzled look, she leaned in closer. "Leo, I need a husband. Would you be interested in giving it a try?" I turned my head slightly, about to instinctively refuse, but just then my mom called. "Leo, didn't I tell you to communicate with that girl? Why did her dad just call me, using a weird tone, saying you weren't interested in her? What's going on?" I felt a headache coming on. I glanced at Clara and whispered into the phone, "That's exactly it." My mom launched into another lecture. "With such great options available, why are you still single? Are you really planning to be alone forever?" "Fine. If you're not interested, I have other matches lined up for you." Dreading the thought of more blind dates, I blurted out, "Mom, I have a girlfriend now. Please stop setting me up." Ignoring the flash of excitement in Clara's eyes across from me, I hung up the phone. Her eyes flickered with an idea. "Until Sam recovers, I'll pay you $10 million a year for his treatment. So, are you interested?" I cut her off. "Deal." It was a fake marriage, a contract. Clara chuckled. "It's a sham, yes, but Sam isn't clueless. We'll need to make it official." I was still in a daze when we left the marriage bureau. Clara took the certificate, saying she'd show it to Sam later. She then drove me to my house. My mom grilled her about her family, her job, everything. When she asked about Sam, Clara glanced at me and said smoothly, "He's my nephew. My sister left him in my care before she passed away." My mom, being a teacher for many years, seemed to like Clara even more after hearing this. I couldn't handle the interrogation anymore and hurried Clara out the door. My mom quickly caught on. Yes, go on. Go gather your things." I watched as the door slammed shut and my luggage was tossed out onto the porch. Clara's eyes held a hint of amusement. "Leo, come home with me." She quickly added, "Don't get the wrong idea. It's to help you bond with Sam." Remembering the black card she had handed me after we left the bureau, I agreed and went to her place. It was a standalone villa in the city center. Clara rarely stayed there, and other than a housekeeper's room on the first floor, only 2 upstairs rooms were maintained. She gave me her room and went to sleep with Sam. The bedding carried her faint, cool fragrance. a scent I had smelled countless times before. It reminded me of a time when she was open and expressive with her love for me, but that was all in the past. The next morning when I came downstairs, Clara and Sam were already at the breakfast table. Without looking up from her magazine, Clara was conversing with Sam, who seemed particularly happy. He looked at me and hesitantly called me Dad. I was taken aback. Clara set her magazine aside. "Don't call people that so carelessly, Sam." The boy's joyful expression vanished, replaced by disappointment. Looking at Clara, I felt a flash of anger. Why say one thing and do another? Why interfere with something she herself had arranged? But then I remembered we were just in a contract. He was her kid, not mine, which meant I had no right to complain. On the drive to the school, I still didn't speak to Clara. She frowned. "You're young. I wasn't sure if you would be comfortable with him calling you that." I stared out the window, nodding absently. She didn't say anything else, just let out a cold laugh. "I hope you can play the role of Dad well once we begin this contract. And unless I say otherwise, you can't just walk away. I won't let you leave me so easily this time." My lips trembled, but I couldn't find any words to say. Later that week, I was waiting with Sam at a snack shop by the school gate, each of us chewing on a lollipop, when Brenda showed up. She walked right up to me. "Leo, why are you still here? Did you think about what I said the other day?" I quickly stopped her. "Sorry, Brenda, it's just not a good fit for us. And besides, I'm already married." I just wanted to end the conversation as quickly as possible. I didn't expect her to laugh dismissively. "Married? So soon? Even if you're rejecting someone, you shouldn't be so half-hearted about it. You have good qualities, Leo, but so do I." Just then, Clara's voice came from behind us. "Married. Leo, can you tell me who your wife is?" "Oh, that's right. It's me." Brenda laughed. "Leo, you actually chose someone who's been married before and has a kid? You'll regret this." Clara stepped forward, gave her a cold look, and kicked her sharply in the shin. "Get lost." Clara took Sam and me to the amusement park. I spent the day playing like a kid again, running from ride to ride with Sam. Clara just stood to the side, occasionally watching us with a small smile. On the way back, as soon as we got in the car, Sam fell asleep from exhaustion. I leaned back in the passenger seat, staring at the road ahead, and soon felt my own eyelids getting heavy. I felt someone gently brush my hair away from my face. A soft sigh followed. "Leo, in these past 7 years, did you ever think of me?" I mumbled, half asleep. "Yes." A soft laugh echoed in my ear. In a daze, I felt someone nibbling at my neck. "You thought of me? Then why did you break up with me 7 years ago?" When I woke up again, Sam and I were lying in a double cabin on a plane. Clara glanced over. "Something came up at the company. I need to take you both to Port City. Don't worry, your mom's foot is much better so she can go back to teaching. I've already told her about our trip, and I've handled Sam's school transfer paperwork." I thought about it. When we broke up, Clara's company was already quite successful. 7 years later, it was probably a major corporation. It made sense that they would have a subsidiary in my small hometown. I nodded. Since I was unemployed anyway, it didn't matter where I went. The idea of traveling with Sam and having some fun, all while being paid, wasn't bad at all. At least after 7 years of countless overtime nights, I could finally relax a bit. When the plane landed, the crowd at the airport exit was massive. Clara held Sam's hand with one hand and took mine with the other. I looked up at her in surprise. Her ears turned slightly red. "Don't get the wrong idea. I'm just afraid you'll get lost, and there'd be no one to help Sam." I blinked, remembering a time in college when my terrible sense of direction got me lost. On a date, I had gotten separated from Clara. She went to exit C, and I somehow ended up at exit A. My phone was in her bag. Clara frantically searched the entire mall for me. When she finally found me, I was calmly buying a cake at a bakery. Seeing her, I just grinned and asked her to pay since I didn't have any cash. She had laughed in frustration. On the way back, she never let go of my hand again. Two of Clara's assistants, a man and a woman, came to pick us up. They showed only a brief flicker of surprise when they looked at me before politely introducing themselves. Clara told the male assistant, Jason, to add me to his contacts, just in case anything happened and I couldn't reach her. A while later, Sam was settled in a private school in Port City. His condition had improved significantly. I was glad that all the time we spent taking him out to experience nature and new things had paid off. Clara, however, rarely spent time with him. I started to think that maybe Sam's autism stemmed from a deep-seated loneliness, a craving for company he never got. Sam was a well-behaved kid, but with him in school all day, I had nothing to do. So one evening after Clara came back from work, I knocked on her door with a glass of milk. She opened it, having just gotten out of the shower. Water droplets trickled down her neck. I swallowed hard, feeling a bit shy. I looked up and met her mischievous eyes. I turned my face away quickly. She leaned closer, whispering in my ear, "Leo, are you satisfied with what you see?" I nodded, then quickly shook my head. She chuckled softly. "Come on in," she said, moving aside. I breathed a sigh of relief, placed the milk on her nightstand, and sheepishly made my request. "While Sam's at school, I'd like to find a job." Thinking of the mesmerizing numbers on the bank card she had given me, I still felt embarrassed needing to ask. She nodded. "You don't need to ask me for permission. Leo, you can do whatever you want." Under the soft lighting, she was standing too close. Her last sentence had an unexpected hint of suggestiveness. I instinctively wanted to leave, but tripped over the leg of the couch, lunging towards her. Clara instinctively wrapped her arms around my head, pulling me down to the floor with her. Her pleasant, clean scent flooded my senses. Embarrassed, I quickly scrambled up, turning away with my head down. She wrapped her towel tighter and got up, pinning me against the wall. She placed her hands on my neck and kissed me, dominant and intense. My fingers curled into fists, my nails almost digging into my palms. Her hands spread out, interlocking our fingers together. After a long moment, I closed my eyes and gently responded to her kiss. She paused, then kissed me even more passionately. When it was over, my legs felt weak. With a soft laugh, Clara led me back to my room. Before leaving, she tilted my head up and gently kissed my forehead. "Good night, Leo." Tossing and turning for a long time, I finally fell asleep. "Good night, Clara. I accepted a job offer at a local company with a start date of next week, so I still had some free time." Lounging on the couch, I was scrolling through social media when I saw a new post from Clara's assistant, Jason. The picture was from a meeting, with expensive bottles of mineral water in front of everyone. But in front of him was a cup of bubble tea. The caption read, "Thanks for the boss's preference." I lowered my eyes, opened his profile, and scrolled through all his posts. I noticed he had been posting quite often recently. Pictures from a dinner party with Clara. Selfies taken inside her extended Rolls-Royce. There were always shots where you could just see Clara's hand or leg in the frame. I felt a bitter taste in my mouth, a sharp realization that I still had feelings for her. I thought about what had happened the other night and decided I needed to make a move. I cooked a meal for Clara. We had been together for years before, but she never asked me to cook. But in the 7 years I had been alone, I had picked up cooking, learning how to take care of myself. I packed the meal and brought it to her office. Just as I got near her door, I looked inside. Sam was asleep on the couch, and Jason was gently covering him with a blanket. Clara was standing next to him, saying something, and Jason was smiling happily. They looked just like a family of 3. I stood there, frozen, holding the food container, not knowing what to do. I was the one who broke up with Clara. She had cried, saying that those who break true hearts deserve to be pricked by 1,000 needles. Seeing this painful scene, maybe she was right. I had my reasons back then, but I still rejected her pleas for us to stay together. And now, what was I even doing? Maybe the kiss yesterday was just an unexpected fleeting moment. I threw the container into the trash can beside me, turned around, and left. I didn't really know where I was going. Just then, a friend called. "Leo, guess where I am? Get ready to buy me dinner." His company had transferred him to Port City. I met him at a new bar to celebrate the fact that we could hang out more often again. We drank a lot. I laid my head on the table and watched as a woman in a dark suit hurried toward us. I told my friend, "Your wife is here." He looked over and rolled his eyes at me. "That's your wife." I shook my head. "No, it's yours." He sighed. "It's Clara. It really is your wife." I remembered the scene from the afternoon and shook my head again. "I don't want a twice-married woman. Whoever wants her can have her." I saw her pause. Then she took off her jacket and draped it over my shoulders, helping me up. My friend shook his head and opened the car door for Clara. She helped me into the front seat. "He's having a tough time today," my friend said. Clara paused, then nodded. After we got back to her place, she helped me out of the car. I looked at her sharp jawline, her face so close to mine. I protested weakly. "I don't want a twice-married woman." She paused. I've only been married once. Besides, Leo, you've already turned me down once. It's not happening again." Just then, Sam came out and meekly asked, "Dad, if you don't want her, can you want me instead?" Half dazed, I responded, "Yes, Sam, you're my favorite." Clara bit back her emotion. "It's a buy one, get one free deal. If you want my son, you have to take me too." I mumbled, "Forcing something only makes it worse." She shut the car door. "Whether it's sweet or not, you'll only know by trying." Then she kissed me. Much later, she kissed my eyelid and laughed softly. "See? Even when forced, it ended up being sweet." Then she tucked me into bed and left. The next day, I came downstairs to find Clara at the table reading a finance magazine. Sam was eating breakfast across from her. He saw me and shouted, "Dad, I saved you some strawberries." I smiled. "Thanks, Sam. You're my favorite." Clara frowned and sent Sam off to get ready for school. As I sat down, she frowned again. "I saved you strawberries too." I paused, embarrassed, thinking about my nonsensical drunken ramblings from last night. My face flushed, but seeing her indifferent expression, I just nodded. "Thanks." She didn't speak, just got up to leave. At the doorway, she turned and said, "Leo, will you bring me lunch today?" I paused, instinctively wanting to pull away. I shook my head. "No, Clara, we're just in a contract, right? An employer and an employee. Once Sam recovers, I plan to leave." Remembering what I had seen yesterday, I had to say it. I didn't want to be the only one with feelings in this situation. I had already found a job. Clara stared at me for a long time, then laughed sarcastically, and left. A bitter feeling squeezed my heart, and the air in the room seemed to get thin. I turned around and saw on the corner of the table the food container I had brought yesterday. I opened it. All the food was gone. I checked Jason's social media updates. His latest post was a check-in at a restaurant with the caption, "Thanks to the boss for lunch." But if she went out to eat, why was my food gone? Then I understood. Clara recalled what Leo had said and felt a deep, familiar pain, a fear that history was about to repeat itself. Not wanting to go back to that dark place, She accepted an invitation from a good friend to go out. She went, but Jason was there too. She frowned, wanting to make him leave, but he wasn't part of her group, so she couldn't ask him to go. As Jason passed by, his wine glass tilted slightly. She lazily caught it, seeing right through his clumsy trick. She raised her eyes to mock him, a silent warning not to be sly. She had always been impartial at work, and didn't believe a woman's role should limit a man's ability. The gender of an assistant didn't matter to her, but given his clear intentions, she knew she couldn't keep him around. Just as she was about to speak, Leo's friend burst in. He sneered, "Wow, quite a life, having one at home and another one outside. How come I never realized how emotional you were, Clara, when you were dating Leo? Have you ever thought about him in moments like these?" She opened her mouth, wanting to explain, but then she remembered what Leo had said that afternoon. She chuckled to herself. He was the one who said he didn't want me. The people around them noticed the tense atmosphere and quietly left the room, leaving only her and Leo's friend. He didn't want you because he was sick. Those words caught Clara completely off guard. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "What did you say?" His friend's eyes were red as he repeated, "I said he separated from you because he was sick. The year you graduated, your mother found his health report from his internship checkup. She took it to Leo and told him to leave you. She insulted him right there on the street, saying he was too weak, and begged him to spare you." Clara's eyes turned red, and tears suddenly began to fall. I didn't know." Those words felt like a dagger twisting in her heart. She lowered her head, her whole body trembling. "Thank you," she managed to say. "It was just a misunderstanding. I'll have him fired." She stood up and left quickly. As the car pulled up downstairs, she looked at the warm lights of the house, and through the window she felt a strange hesitation to go inside. She hadn't known Leo was sick. Even if she had, she wouldn't have cared. She recalled a date where they saw a family of 3 walking ahead of them. He had asked her if she liked kids. She had nodded, holding his hand and saying that someday they would name their child Sam. Leo's hand had stiffened slightly, but he didn't say anything. She knew her mother, who had grown up in a small town, always favored her brother and spent her time in gambling halls. Those vile words must have deeply humiliated the 20-something Leo, but he was the one who was so dear to her heart. If they hadn't split up 7 years ago, they might have been married by now. She sat in the car, closed her eyes, and let her tears fall, finally covering her face as she trembled in pain. It was only after a long while that Leo knocked on the car window. "I saw a familiar car from upstairs, but I didn't see you get out of it, Clara, so I came down." He didn't expect to see her tear-stained eyes, and it hurt him to see her like that. "What's wrong?" Clara opened the car door and hugged him tightly. "I apologize on behalf of my mother. I'll handle it. Leo, I don't care about any of that. I told you I love kids because I wanted to have kids with you. If the child isn't yours, they don't mean anything to me. I'm so sorry for not knowing, and for you having to go through so much." She trembled slightly, betraying her emotional turmoil. "I understand," I nodded gently. "It's okay, Clara." She put her hands on my shoulders, her voice almost a plea. "Leo, please don't leave me again." I recalled the day we broke up. When I suggested it, she was holding a small cake she had brought for me. Hearing my words, she just stood there, stunned. Her voice quivered as she asked, "Why?" I kept my face a mask, hiding the longing in my eyes. I frowned. "I don't like you anymore. Honestly, I was only with you because you're pretty and rich. I never actually liked you or thought about a future with you. I'm just tired of it now." I don't know how I managed to say such hurtful things. I only remember Clara looking at me, her eyes red with anger. "Why are you tired, Leo? You're lying." I didn't respond, even though my heart was breaking. She said, "Leo, do you want me to cut open my heart and show it to you? You can't just break up with me without a real reason. I won't let you go. What did I do wrong? I can change. Just tell me and I'll change." I stood by the sofa, unable to stop the tears from falling from my eyes. No matter how much she begged, I stayed silent. The quiet stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she asked, "Can we please not break up?" The apartment was so silent we could hear each other breathing. "We have to break up." Her eyes were bloodshot as she stared at me. "If you insist on breaking up today, on crushing what we have, then let's just pretend we never even started." I said, "Fine." Clara nodded. "Leo, those who betray true love will swallow 1,000 needles. I hope you grow old alone." I looked at her. "The same to you." Later, we each went back to our rooms. The next day, as I was leaving, I saw a note from her on the table. "Leo, never mind. I don't want you to grow old and lonely anymore. When we were young, we were naive and felt powerless against fate. I was too awful, unable to continue our relationship in that situation. Now all I felt was regret for the 7 best years of our lives that we had lost. We missed our chance." "But over time," I said, "I learned how to handle things." I looked at her. "Clara, you and Jason—" Before I could finish, she quickly interrupted. "There's nothing between us. He's just my assistant. We only ever talked about work. I realized what his intentions were, and I had him fired. Leo, I will only ever love you." I nodded. "Let's go home." I didn't tell her that I had regretted my words from that afternoon, too. Later, maybe out of fear, Jason sent me a bunch of messages explaining that the photos he shared were staged and begging me not to have Clara blacklist him in the industry. He admitted he had his own agenda, hoping to push me aside for his own gain. But now he realized how formidable Clara was. I had initially intended to tell her about my illness tonight, but she had already found out. She paused, slightly dazed, as if she was waiting for something. I smiled, turned back, and kissed her on the lips. Even the sensitive Sam seemed to sense that something was different between Clara and me, but he seemed more at ease with it. Before bed, he hugged my leg and asked, "Dad, can you sleep with me tonight?" Clara, fresh out of the shower and wearing silk pajamas, walked out of her room with a cold smirk. She said, "Nope, because my husband has to sleep with me." Sam pouted, looking at me. "You're a big liar. You said if Leo became my dad, he could sleep with me, just like how John's dad sleeps with him." I blinked. Clara's ears turned slightly red. Sam kept talking, getting more and more frustrated. It was rare for him to say so much at once, and neither Clara nor I interrupted him. He did seem genuinely upset. From his words, I learned that in those 7 years, Clara had often talked about me to Sam. On the day of our blind date, she had made sure Sam knew not to let anyone else serve me food. That's why his gaze had been so cautious that day. I was shocked by Clara's long-term planning, but in my heart, I felt a bittersweet warmth. In the end, Clara picked Sam up by his shirt collar and tossed him back into his room. When she came back out, her ears were still red. She looked at me, took my hand, and led me into a different room. In the simply decorated black and white room, Clara smiled a bit. "We'll sleep here tonight. I just need to grab something." Then she left. After she was gone, I looked around the room, blushing, and saw a photo on the bedside table. It was a picture of me. Next to it was a bottle of antidepressants. A sharp pain hit my heart. I opened the drawer of her bedside table and found several identical bottles of pills and her medical logs, which documented her 7-year battle with depression. From imagining I was beside her, to being unable to sleep, and even showing signs of self-harm. It turned out that in those 7 years we were apart, we had both had a rough time. When Clara came back with my pillow and a carrot-shaped pillow of her own, she paused slightly. I looked up and asked, "What are these pills?" She looked straight at me. "Just cold medicine." I laughed while tears rolled down my face. "Liar, they're antidepressants." She said nothing, just hugged me. "It's okay now. You're with me." Then she smiled. "How did you know they were antidepressants?" I hugged her waist, staying silent. She held me tighter. "Clara and I are officially registered, but we're not married yet. The wedding is planned for next month. The dress and the ring were things Clara had prepared long ago. The details of the wedding are being handled by a professional company, but we still have to take the wedding photos ourselves." After the photo shoot, Clara stopped at a supermarket and told me to wait outside while she went in. While I was waiting, I unexpectedly ran into her college roommate and best friend. She approached me with no surprise on her face, calling me brother-in-law. Then she asked, "Is Clara inside?" I nodded, then asked, confused, "How did you know we were together?" Her friend raised an eyebrow, opened her phone, and showed it to me. "Brother-in-law, I've got something interesting to show you." "What is it?" I asked, surprised. On the phone was Clara's social media page. Her friend scrolled through it and narrated. "This is from 7 years ago on graduation night. Clara was ready to propose to you, but we found out from your roommate that you had gone to North City. So Clara drank alone in a private room all night. This was a while back when she met you again. She started posting like crazy, updating her social media every day." I glanced at it. Most of the posts were from recent times. Pictures of her cooking, fixing light bulbs, taking care of Sam, and from her work. Not a single post was repetitive. Anyone could tell she was a wealthy, beautiful, and all-around capable woman. Thinking back to Clara's social media posts from our college days, I couldn't help but chuckle. Her friend scrolled to the top. I saw a picture of me asleep on a black leather sofa. I didn't even know when she had taken it. Her gaze in the photo was full of deep affection. The caption read, "We still have a story." Her friend was known for being talkative and scrolled to the very bottom of Clara's posts. In the 7 years I was gone, she hadn't posted anything on social media. It wasn't long before I found the very first post. A photo of Clara and me on the day we got together. The picture was from before I had even officially met Clara. I was standing at the library entrance in a cream-colored sweater, holding some materials in one hand and an umbrella in the other. Clara was coming out of a convenience store, holding a white plastic bag with a pair of comfortable women's slippers inside. Seeing this photo, her expression turned slightly uneasy. I looked up. "When did you take this picture?" She stiffly turned off her friend's phone screen. "The first time I saw you." Her friend smirked mischievously. "Brother-in-law, she liked you from the very start. After she found out who you were, she'd often show up in your classes." I thought about it and finally understood why I used to run into Clara so often. I had thought it was a coincidence, but it turns out it was all intentional. I remembered when I first developed a crush on Clara and started pursuing her. She seemed aloof, yet her ears would turn so red they looked like they might bleed. I had felt so proud back then, excited by her shyness. Little did I know, the best hunters often appear as the prey. "If you don't speak, no one will mistake you for a mute," Clara said through clenched teeth. Her friend pouted and left with the car keys reluctantly. But before leaving, she said, "Crafty lady." Then she quietly added, "Brother-in-law, if you want to know more, check her study drawer." Locking eyes with Clara's cold stare, her friend ducked her head and drove off quickly. I looked up, grinning at her. Her ears turned red again, and she reached out to hold my hand. The evening sun cast its dappled light on us, with people occasionally passing by on red bicycles. The convenience store behind us played soft music. Our fingers intertwined. The first thing we did when we got home was Emily held my face and leaned in to kiss my lips. Outside the floor-to-ceiling window, fireworks scattered across the sky. It was as intense as her love, blooming like the most brilliant flower. I wrapped my arms around her neck and kissed her back. At 3 a.m, Clara was already asleep beside me. I remembered what her friend had told me. Carefully moving Clara's arm from around me, I sneaked into her study and opened a drawer. Inside was a thick stack of plane tickets, all to the same place, from Port City to the northern city where I had lived. I realized that in all those days we were apart, I never knew she had secretly come to visit me so many times. The first time I saw Leo was on a late autumn evening during a downpour. After researching some initial project issues with my roommates, I decided to head to the library. Holding an umbrella, I was outside the library when I spotted a handsome guy standing by the entrance. Under the dim light of the doorway, he stood there patiently, as if waiting for someone. Maybe sensing my gaze, he looked up at me, confused. Our eyes met through the curtain of rain. I paused for a moment, looking into his clear eyes, and my heart warmed. It wasn't until his friend emerged, squeezing under his umbrella as they left together, that I looked away. Back at the dorm, that silhouette kept flashing in my mind. Just then, my roommate yelled from her computer, "A frog trying to eat swan meat!" Looking down, I saw a video of the guy from the library being pursued by a girl clad head to toe in brand logos. I felt an inexplicable tension in my heart. Driven by a strange impulse, I asked, "Did he agree?" My roommate chuckled. "No way. That girl's a notorious social climber who's wrecked plenty of relationships on campus. Leo would never be with her. He already refused her." Leo, I thought. "Since when do you care about this stuff, Clara?" she asked. I didn't reply, just felt oddly relieved. Later, I started showing up around Leo often. I didn't expect that after a few times, he would purposely choose to sit near me. When I happened to be playing badminton, he watched from the side, blushing as he handed me a bottle of water. It seemed he had mustered a great deal of courage. Those bright eyes were focused only on me. I realized what it meant. My heart raced wildly. The day Leo proposed that we break up, he said something so hurtful. My lips trembled, and I could barely hold back my tears. In the ensuing silence, I calmed down and asked softly, "Can we not break up?" Leo didn't answer. Darkness wrapped around me. He said, "We have to break up." "Okay," I said. I couldn't use love as a reason to trap him by my side, though I had considered it just now. Whether or not Leo still loved me, just being by his side would have been enough. But I gave up. He had the right to choose. In the 3 months after we broke up, I'd still save a seat for him in class. The night of graduation, I decided to propose to Leo. With everything prepared, I was nervous and sweaty. I thought maybe Leo would say no, but I could never have predicted how we would meet again. After graduation, I thought maybe we'd get back together, get married. But I never imagined that Leo's roommate would tell me he had flown to North City overnight. Later, I often imagined him still there in the empty room, in my arms. After a while, Leo and I would argue. He'd complain that I was too bossy. One night, I stared at the sleeping Leo for a long time. When I told my friend about this, she took me to see a therapist. I thought, well, that's it. With this illness, I'm even less deserving of Leo. I finally couldn't resist my longing and visited Leo several times. I watched him slowly mature in North City, so handsome it made my heart flutter. Later, I heard that Leo's mom had gotten into a car accident. I didn't hesitate to return to my hometown. In that small city, I saw Leo on a matchmaking date. I was relieved that in 7 years, he hadn't fallen for anyone else. But seeing him on a date with another woman, I couldn't stop the pang of jealousy and bitterness. I could only pretend to be calm. He would never know that the moment we reunited, my heart had recognized him before my mind did. Knowing that my mom had sought Leo out, tears suddenly fell from my eyes. I didn't know that the one I had so carefully loved had been so humiliated. It was like a knife stabbing deep into my heart. I squatted down, covering my eyes, trembling all over. I felt like I could never face Leo again in this life. I returned home, taking back everything I had ever given to my mom over the years. I refused to pay off the hundreds of thousands in gambling debt she had racked up just yesterday. My mom yelled at me, "For a guy like that, you treat me this way? I'm your mother." My fingers trembled as I replied in a shaky voice, "Be glad you're my mother, or I don't know what I would do." After speaking, I sent people to take my mom to her favorite brother's house. Her brother dared not protest, just cursed as he took their mom back. Back in Port City, staring at the warm light from the glass windows of the large flat, I oddly hesitated to go up. Until Leo came down. I hugged him tightly. Thankfully, Leo and I were together again. The regret was that we had lost 7 years, but thankfully 7 years later, we were still there for each other, ready to let our love search for its home and sink into it for a lifetime.